What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Tsunade threw the report on her desk. It was something about a new force springing up around the elemental nations. She really didn't care at this point. She rotated her chair to glance out over her great village. 5 years today, she sighed. 5 years since the members of the Akatsuki, Red Moon, had been annihilated. 5 years since the Great Peace had swept over the Fire Country. 5 years since that damnable necklace stole the life of another person she loved. Damn brat, she thought as her face twisted into a scowl. It's the Hokage's place to die for Konoha, not a Chunon's. Flashback. Tsunade. They're breaking through the main gate, cried Jiraiya from atop his frog summon. He quickly sprinted off in that direction, his team right on his heels. Reinforce the gate and prepare to engage the enemy, he shouted as the giant wooden door jerked violently. Akatsuki, so you're coming for the brat, he smiled triumphantly. Well, we won't let you have him. Meanwhile on Team 7's training field another clash of titans was occurring. It's time for you to show me your power, Oto, droned Itachi. Sasuke, recently retrieved from Orochimaru, had activated his cursed seal level 2 and his 3-Toma Sharingan was spinning violently. I've hated and despised you, he hissed. I've lived through any means I could. I've gained power at nearly the cost of my friends and life. After flashing through several seals his arm was encased in a crackling energy. Now for all of the pain, you will die. As the forces of Akatsuki and Konoha were about to collide, an encompassing chakra flashed through the village. The leader of the criminal organization narrowed his eyes and focused on the figure perched atop the stone carving of the Yondaime. 3 giant tails of chakra whipping around his body. There he is, stated the man, ignore the others and capture that boy. Naruto sprinted through the village, nimbly dodging kunai and jutsu. Come on you bastards, he thought as one by one the Akatsuki began to chase him down. Casting a glance back as he cleared the walls of village, he saw that indeed all of the bastards were hot on his tail. When he deemed it a sufficient distance from the village he skidded to a halt. So you bastards are here for the Kyuubi, he growled as his skin began to peel away. You're going to wish you had thought this through better. The members of Akatsuki had no time to react as the boy's body seemed to detonate with a chakra that, literally, ignited the air. Naruto, cried Sakura as she, and the remaining members of the rookies, watched the ever-expanding dome of red chakra scorch the sky and burn the earth. Without a second thought every last person gathered sprinted to the area. It wasn't what they found that broke them, it was what was missing. Naruto, whispered the pink-haired girl as she lifted his shredded and scarred forehead protector. Idiot, you can't die, you're bigger than that. She fell to her knees, crying, Naruto. Forward to the funeral. Whether they scorned him or loved him, most of the village and all of the shinobi had turned out for the funeral. We are here, started Tsunade as her voice shook slightly, cradling a picture to her chest. To pay our respects to someone that has saved this village from certain destruction on more than one occasion. She walked up to the empty coffin and placed the photo of the blonde shinobi on it. He was sporting a huge grin and scratching the back of his head. Turning to the crowd she continued, before he gave his life to stop the invasion of Akatsuki. Before he fought against one of the legendary 3, to save a friend lost in the darkness. Before he risked his all to save the case cage. Before he single-handedly saved us from the Sabaku no Shukaku. He saved us from the Kyuubi no Kitsune by becoming his jailer. We haven't all looked upon him with the kindest eyes, she cast a withering gaze over the gathered. I hope now you see the error of your ways, and now give him the gratitude in death, that he never received in life. First was the Godem, she laid a small flower on the casket. Thank you, for everything. Next was Jiraiya, he set down a bottle of the finest sake money could buy. I know, you're underage. I was saving it for when you became Hokage. He cast a glance up to the carving of Arashi. I never had a doubt in my mind. Kakashi followed. I'm sorry I wasn't a better sensei. He sighed and placed his most sacred possession on the table. A mint condition of Icha Paradise Volume 1. He shrugged, it might be a long wait to get in. Sasuke placed his scarred forehead protector on the table near the picture. It was the same one Naruto had taken from the Valley of the End. The same one he gave back to Sasuke when he woke up in the hospital after his miraculous rescue. The Uchiha glared at the picture. Stupid Dobi, he thought. Then he smiled genuinely. I acknowledge you, Naruto. Sakura stepped up. Instead of a white flower she placed a red rose. It spoke of everything that she felt for him, respect, courage, and finally the thing she had most wanted to say before the attack. I love you, Naruto. She broke down and cried. The light was gone from her, and now all she could feel was darkness. She was helped up by her mentor. I never told him, Tsunade-sama, she sobbed, now I can't. The remaining gathered placed either a white flower or a small token. Like one Akamichi Choji who placed a cup ramen proclaiming that Naruto never had enough ramen. Hyuga Neji placed a small replica of a birdcage. Its door was missing, signifying Naruto's releasing him from his prison. Hyuga Hinata placed something she prized more than anything. It was a kunai she had taken while Naruto was practicing to the point of exhaustion, so many years ago. She said nothing as her tears fell silently. End flashback. The Godem swiped a falling tear and turned around to her paperwork. Suddenly the door burst open. Tsunade-sama. Cried a completely flustered Inuzuka Kiba. We have a serious problem. What is it? Questioned the perplexed Hokage. The 20-year-old man shoved a spyglass into her hands and then spun her to face the window. When she peered through the object she only saw the north gates. Kiba, I don't. Look higher, he interrupted. Moving the lens up further she caught sight of 4 figures approaching the village. Dear God, she whispered. She dropped the telescope and burst out the room. Get everyone down to the main gate now. I don't care what you're doing. What's wrong, Tsunade? Questioned a confused Kakashi as several Junin and Anbu fell into running pace behind her. She only uttered 2 words and everyone's focus went from confused to stern. They're back. Outside the large wooden gates 4 hooded and masked figures, garbed in long flowing coats, were in conversation. So here we are, back at the beginning of all things, said the man with a white, blank mask, trimmed in red and gold. The tallest snorted, it's quiet, he responded from behind his blue-trimmed mask. I find it quite peaceful, interjected the third, his mask laced in blue and silver, although it doesn't seem like they're too fond of letting us in. We should be wary, replied the last individual. His mask was decorated in a combination of black and red. I would expect a large welcoming party on the other side. Ah, replied the silver-masked man as he eyed his partner. His team knew that under his facial coverlet, he was smiling kindly. Let's knock and see if someone will answer then. He stepped up to the large oak door and let out a sharp whistle. This is quite the door, he stated as his hand slid from his sleeve, revealing an intricately forged, blue and silver, gauntlet that extended to his mid-forearm. Closing his eyes he began to focus on his open palm. Thank you. Celestial sphere. A small glowing blue orb appeared and the man slowly closed his fingers around it. He began to whisper as the sphere was absorbed into his hand, causing it to give off a bright glow. Destruction cometh. And they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. Opening his eyes he slammed his fist into the strong wood. Tenkin. Divine punishment. The Konoha nins that resided on the other side of the gate had just dispersed the civilians when a voice rang out. Tenkin. Tsunade went wide-eyed at the amount of chakra that suddenly filled the air. Everyone down. She cried. Without a second thought everyone was on the ground and their hands covering their heads. Moments before the giant door exploded into splinters. You know I never cease to be impressed by you, stated the man in the red and gold mask. The man who had destroyed the gate gave a small nod. I aim to please, sir. Although, I do hope they don't make me pay for it, it looked rather expensive. The largest man let out a gruff laugh while the smallest focused on the clearing smoke. I was right. The leaves have come to greet us. His 3 companions turned and saw the Konoha forces out in full, some with weapons drawn, and some with jutsu prepared to launch. It seems we aren't being underestimated either. You have a lot of nerve showing your faces here, shouted an Anbu with pink hair and her sword drawn. Our faces? Questioned the largest man. We aren't showing our faces at all. He grinned and reached to his back, pulling out his long bandaged weapon he pointed it at the woman. But you're more than welcome to try and see who we are. I'll kill him, she thought and charged, her sword prepped to meet his in mid-swing. I don't know why or how they're back but I'll kill them, for Naruto. Her forward momentum was halted abruptly. Turning her head she saw the blue and silver masked man gripping her blade with a gauntlet-covered hand. Let go. She shouted and launched a hard kick at him. Despite what you think, he paused and parried her attack. We are not here to start a fight, my dear. Once she was free, the woman made a swing for the man's neck. You are quite the determined individual. Thank you. Celestial sphere. In a flash he was gone and reappeared behind the Anbu. His finger pointed at her skull, and his hand glowing. I wouldn't move if I were you. It could get a bit messy. He flinched as he fled, another blade pressed to his stomach. Ah, I seem to have miscounted my opponents. I don't give a damn who you are, came another female voice, from behind a boar mask, but that is my best friend, and you're going to stop whatever freaky technique that is, before I gut you. The tallest one doubled over in laughter. The great Amatsu Kishi, Heavenly Knight, beaten by two women. He clutched his sides even harder. Boy, I'm glad we have you. Don't know where we'd be. That's enough, shouted the man with the gold and red mask. All three of you will withdraw your attacks. Do not command my shinobi, shouted Tsunade in a rage. You're in no position to give any requests, much less orders. He ignored the enraged woman and turned to his companion. That is enough, withdraw your attack. The silver-masked man nodded and lowered his hand, the glow ebbing away and his sleeves falling back over his metal-plated hands. The man presumed to be the leader turned his head. You as well please, he added to the smallest, in the black and red mask. Hi, replied the man as he moved his arm and retracted the thin wires wrapped around the two women's necks. Now you are in full control of the situation, Tsunade-sama, stated the man. We are merely here to issue a warning about a coming disaster, and if you so desire, offer our assistance. He paused and gave a light laugh, for a price of course. Jiraiya stepped up next to Tsunade, a frown evident on his face. So the Akatsuki are shinobi for hire now? What happened to your grande scheme for ultimate power? Akatsuki? Questioned the man. You have us mistaken, Akatsuki was wiped out years ago. It was this village, after all, that ended their lives. He glanced down at the red clouds trimmed in white that adorned his black coat. As for our colors, well, I have an affinity to red, and it really is a unique desig. We will have your names and the name of your organization then, interrupted the fifth. The man was beginning to lose patience, and his voice reflected as much. You're asking a bit much, don't you think? Do clients require your Anbu to remove their masks before being taking a mission? We are hardly your clients, interrupted the Toad Sanin, and seeing how two of you match the physical characteristics of the only two Akatsuki members that weren't killed in the battle with the Kyuubi, I suggest you drop the charade. The air was so thick that you could cut it with a knife. Two blue eyes scanned the Konoha forces in mild annoyance. So, here we are, no attacks prepared against your many, he stated, not hiding the razor edge to his voice, and we are simply offering a warning. Oh? Questioned Jiraiya in mild curiosity, still not going to show your faces? No response. Then what's this great threat? A palpable silence washed over the groups. The man with the red and gold mask let out an audible sigh, then nodded to the man in the silver and blue. No avoiding it. We can't get a contract with a village that's oblivious to the coming disaster. Proud and stubborn, sighed the man still caught in between the two Konoha Anbu women. Shinobi frustrate me to no end. He crossed his arms and bowed his head slightly. From a dark country to the west, comes an army of the devil, summoned by men, and driven by hate. Several Konoha nins went wide-eyed in surprise. It's much worse than it sounds. The tallest man louched a scroll at the Hokage. That's our contract. Should you decide to take our warning seriously, simply sign it and we'll be here within the hour. He grinned maliciously under his mask. Of course the ink has to be your blood. The red and black masked man jerked his head to the left. We are surrounded. Correct, stated the Hokage. You've given your bargaining tool without thinking. Not very smart. You, stated the red and gold masked man, are pissing me off. We came to offer help and you respond in force. We came to offer a warning and you offer hostility. He raising his right arm, the sleeve fell back to reveal a clawed hand. Your arrogance is staggering. We didn't come here to start a war. Calm yourself, chided the shortest. I request that we simply be allowed to take our leave of you. Tsunade glared at the men. I'm not agreeing to anything until I know your identities. This time a sharp tone came from the blue and silver masked one. Understand this, he stated as he narrowed silver eyes on the blonde woman that had yet to retract her weapon. If you attack, we will respond, tenfold. He reached up and drew back his hood, revealing disheveled black hair that fell in every direction around his head. He let out a light chuckle as several gasps were heard. I hate to disappoint, but I'm not who you think I am. He then removed his mask, revealing a surprisingly kind and attractive face. My name is Mitsukai Saramochi. A pleasure to meet you. The most startling thing was his eyes. They were silver. Not some off type of white or gray, they were a true metallic silver. Some call me the Amatsukishi. What is your village of origin? Questioned the boar-masked Anbu as she pressed her sword a bit more into his stomach. I've never heard of an Amatsukishi. He smiled down at her despite his position. I'm no ninja, just a warrior. Oh, me next, shouted the tallest. He slammed his blade into the earth and pulled back his hood, revealing deep blue, spiky hair. You're going to love this next part, he snarled as he removed his mask. Hoshigaki Kisame, though I don't really find any pleasure in the situation. His hand was quickly on Samahata as several leaf nins flared their chakra, preparing to attack. Try me, he growled. Kisame, that's enough, scolded the smallest man. He hesitated a moment before removing his mask then hood. Uchiha Itachi, he deadpanned. He scanned the crowd, an expected reaction. He thought as a black-haired Anbu captain charged, red eyes flashing under his wolf mask, a bit brash Oto. Itachi activated his Sharingan and prepared to defend. I do not wish to fight. I don't see a. He was cut off as a clawed hand gripped his neck and slammed him into the ground. Learn to listen, shouted the only member with a mask, still jumping into a hopeless situation just to appease your own selfish wants. Ne Sasuke Teme? The youngest Uchiha went wide-eyed at the nickname. The voice was different, deeper and had malice laced through it. Something, however, was familiar. Who are you? He hissed. Just a merc, replied the man as he stood to his full height of 6 foot, looking for his next paycheck. He slid his hood back, uncovering vibrant, untamed, blonde hair. A clawed hand came up to his face and removed the intricately painted mask, revealing a strong face, skin slightly tan. Each cheek adorned with 3 whisker-like markings, his eyes a deep blue with slitted pupils. Naruto, he stated with a fanged sneer, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto? Whispered the pink-haired Anbu as she dropped her sword. Is it? Really you? Tears began to flow down her face and pool at the base of her sealed mask. This is a dream, a horrible dream. Please let me wake up, I can't face you again. A panda-masked Anbu lowered her guard. Naruto-kun? She whispered. He let out a laugh that sent chills down everyone's spines. I suppose. He shouted. Then his voice dropped to almost a growl, but then, not really. He crossed his arms and sneered. It's complicated. Oh, Naruto-kun is being mysterious, stated Saramochi with a grin. Then he pouted at the woman who once again ground her weapon into his gut. Piggy-chan, could you please stop doing that? Jiraiya was the first to get over the shock of seeing him alive. What do you mean, not really? What the hell is wrong with you? We're not here to discuss me, interrupted the young man. We're here to discuss a business arrangement to assist your village in surviving the coming disaster. He pulled a folder from his coat and tossed it at the Hokage's feet. Several pictures spewed forth. That's what's left of Stone and Rain. He shook his head. They don't take prisoners. You're either dead or you're dying. Tsunade scanned the images and went visibly pale. What is this? The picture she was currently inspecting had corpses impaled on long spikes of wood, women and children mostly. She nearly retched at the sight. What kind of people can do this? Kisame frowned. They're not people. They lash out like a whip, replied Itachi. They come in from the west over the great mountains, destroy the nearest town, then retreat. Kakashi kept his eyes locked on the Uchiha, waiting for any sign of hostility. Are they shinobi? He questioned. The shark man snorted. You wish. At first we attempted to assist Stone and Rain, added Saramochi, his jovial expression gone, but with the speed at which the army covers ground, it was impossible to prepare. There was another unknown factor in each battle. It seemed as time rolled on the army's strength never faltered, if anything it increased. Itachi noticed it first, continued Naruto, everyone you killed simply got back up. The eldest Uchiha crossed his arms. Worse than that, is that when one of our allies would fall, he too would join the enemy. He locked eyes with the Godem. That's why we are here. This is the furthest ninja village from the western mountains. It gives us time to prepare a viable strategy before they arrive. And what of the sand? Questioned Jiraiya. They are our allies, we can't simply let them be killed. We will alert them immediately. Exclaimed Tsunade as she gestured to an older Shikamaru. clad in a simple Konoha Junin outfit, make for Suna and inform them that they should be wary of Atta. That won't be enough, interrupted Naruto with a frown. Tell them they should pack up and come here. They stand no chance, and no matter how powerful Gaara has gotten since his separation with Shukaku, not even he can hold off an army of the dead. He made a gesture to his comrades and they all began to walk away. Why won't you fight with us? Questioned Jiraiya with a hint of sadness in seeing his now alive student a shell of his former self. What happened to you? I've already given my life for Konoha, replied Naruto as he looked back over his shoulder. If you will not agree to the contract, then we have nothing left to discuss, he stated flatly. Then he turned to the pink-haired Anbu. I remember you. After all these years, are those tears for me? He frowned at the look in her green eyes. No, you never worried about me. You only asked me to do things you were too weak to do. Saramochi glared at him. That attitude is what has you in this situation in the first place, Naruto. Tsunade was caught in a torrent of emotions as she held the contract and looked into the cold eyes of her once beloved little brother. I'll sign it, she hissed and bit her finger. Then we're going to have a talk about what's happened to you. Naruto grinned like a cat which had caught a mouse. Finally, he sighed as the Hokage spread her blood over the seal. Everyone could only watch as a deep red light emitted from the scroll. Then the Godime's blood began to move and pool into the center of the page, slowly taking the shape of a six-pointed star. What is this? Gasped the Toad Hermit as he gazed upon the white symbols littering the page. This is no ordinary contract, he shouted as a white light engulfed Tsunade. Then the piece of paper rolled back up on its own, then poofed into smoke. What was that? Questioned Kakashi. Saramochi smiled serenely at the copy ninja, a very special contract. It's for those who have nay. If we must discuss details, interrupted Itachi, then we should do so in private. These things are not for the entire shinobi populace of Konoha to hear. Tsunade staggered back to her feet and glared at the eldest Uchiha. Anbu Team 6, escort these people to my office. Let's go, handsome, said the boar-masked Anbu as she pushed Saramochi towards the group. Itachi was being herded by his brother, while Naruto had the pink-haired girl following him. Finally Kisame was grinning smugly as his captor only held her hand to his back. Naruto frowned at the looks he and his companions were receiving. Yes, I'm here. Sorry for not dying like you wanted, he hissed, fuckers. Then he turned to the pink-haired Anbu that would not stop looking at him, and stop looking at me. You never did before. The woman flinched, as if struck by his biting words. The boar-masked woman was about to clock him. Naruto-kun, scolded Saramochi. I suggest you get that chip off your shoulder before you completely foul up the arrangement and you find yourself back where I found you. His mood immediately flipped back to friendly as he looked around the village. Do not act like you're here out of the goodness of your heart, Amatsukishi, snarled the blonde in retort. You fucked up too. This is your last shot, Naruto-kun, replied the man with a smile. I've completed my obligation. I'm only here because I find myself drawn to your story. Don't make me regret it. Jiraiya noticed that the blonde immediately shut his mouth and glared at the smaller man. Then he attempted to strike up some type of conversation with his former student. I'm curious as to how you three survived that explosion 5 years ago. Naruto turned blue-slitted eyes on him and flashed his elongated canines. Who said we survived? The Anbu along with the Godem and Toad Hermit stopped dead in their tracks. What? Questioned Tsunade. How could you be here if you didn't survive? That makes no sense. She glared as the four continued their march to the tower. I want answers. She yelled, causing several citizens to cringe. Be quiet, woman, shouted Kisame. We said we'd explain when we got somewhere private. Fine, she retorted and stormed off to the tower. After a 15-minute march, the group found themselves in the office of the 5th Hokage. Now I want a full explanation. What was that contract? What the hell are you people? And most importantly, she rounded on Naruto. What the hell happened to you? The blonde held up his fingers and began ticking off answers. A contract of the Forsaken? That's a good question. And hell. A contract of the what? Questioned Jiraiya with a frown. I've never heard of anything like that. It would, perhaps, be best if Saramochi explained it, interjected Itachi. He is the holder of the contract after all. The silver-eyed man smiled at all of them. I seem to have been put on the spot, he stated with a grin. Let's see if I remember correctly. A contract of the Forsaken is a binding document between the holder and one or more of the Forsaken. The who? Questioned Tsunade. The damned, he replied as if the most simple thing in the world, those that have committed atrocities in their lives without remorse. He then crossed his arms and took on a thoughtful expression, those are the Forsaken. It's pretty cut and dry, heaven or hell. Sometimes a group of people come through and they fall directly in the center. He pointed to the shark man, take Kisame-kun for example, he killed mercilessly and without remorse his whole life. Straight to hell, right? But a year before he died, he saved a group of children from a burning building. A noble and selfless act, worthy of a good soul. Smiling, he gestured to Itachi. Itachi-kun destroyed his family, again, no room for confusion. Then the day before the battle at Konoha, he repents for all he's done, and asks for forgiveness. Once again, tilting the scales. That's all? Shouted Sasuke as he ripped off his wolf mask, just an I'm sorry, and it's all better? You're speaking in ignorance again, interrupted Saramochi, Sasuke-kun. God isn't vengeful or merciless, also you do not know the stipulations of the contract. His silver eyes flashed white as he gazed at Naruto. Naruto was an innocent, giving selflessly and gaining nothing in return. He gave his life for his friends and home, a noble soul through and through. His place in heaven was secured the moment he was born. I don't have to listen to this shit, hissed the blonde, vanishing in a blast of black chakra. Sakura removed her mask. Then why is he one of these, Forsaken, she questioned. He gave everything for us, why wasn't he allowed peace? Itachi-kun, Kisame-kun, could you please locate Naruto-kun and see to it that he does nothing to negate the contract? Questioned Saramochi, ignoring the pink-haired girl's outburst. Both men nodded and disappeared. He then turned to the remaining room's occupants. I was there the day Naruto-kun died. Ino and Hinata had also removed their masks and were now listening intently, though not in the capacity that I would have liked. I don't care, interrupted the Hokage as she glared at the man. He was given shit through his whole life, what happened? Saramochi casually strolled to the window and glanced out over the hidden village. Kyuubi happened, he replied somberly, in the last moments. Naruto unleashed the destructive power of the Nine Tails, knowing it would kill him. However, when the seal was broken, Naruto's soul mixed with the Kyuubi's, creating one being. He was denied entrance to heaven, because his soul was now mixed and saturated with that of a demon's. He turned and gave a sad smile to them. He was cast into hell for 4 years, left alone and mentally broken. Sakura's head was spinning. Naruto was sent to hell? She staggered to the trash can and lost the contents of her stomach. Why? She hissed and cleaned her mouth with the back of her hand. What kind of god would let someone so kind, so sweet, endure something like that? The silver-eyed man smiled and helped her up. To let even the slightest bit of a demon into heaven would condemn it to ruin. Once the woman was centered on her feet, he resumed his place at the window. That is the reason for the contract. He smiled kindly at them. It was serene and seemed to calm the despair in the room. God felt pity for him, but not even he can split a soul, once whole. So he did the only thing he could. He dispatched an angel to the depths of hell to retrieve him. According to the report, Naruto was reliving every painful moment of his life, over and over. When he was retrieved, it took another year to repair his broken mind, but the hate and malice of the Nine Tails had already taken hold. So that isn't Naruto-kun? Questioned Hinata. Yes and no, replied Saramochi, he is Naruto, but something more, something darker. Essentially he is now the strongest demon walking the earth. He locked a stern gaze on Sasuke. The darkness that runs through him makes that cursed seal look like a child's plaything. Jiraiya flopped down into a chair. So he's evil? He's fighting, replied Saramochi. His yin and yang are at war with each other. Unfortunately, the darkness is winning. Eventually he will become a full demon and nothing in this world will be able to contain him. The contract isn't the solution to saving him, only the catalyst. The contract stipulates that should the binding deem his deeds noble enough, while under the agreement, he will be given another lease on life. Essentially rejoining he living. That's only a comfortable side effect. The real reason was to get him back to Earth to remind him of what he fought for and died for. We're hoping it's the edge his light side will need to conquer the darkness. He turned to Tsunade. You're the binding. You're the one to deem his deeds noble or not. The blonde woman thought for a moment. I don't suppose I can just say it now and be done? I'm afraid not, he replied with a light laugh. It has to be done while under the contract. He turned and began out the door. The fate of the world is on this village's shoulders. Oi! Shouted Ino at the man's retreating form. How the shit do you know all this? He smiled back at the group. I was the one sent to retrieve him. I suppose I should give my full introduction. He cleared his throat and stood up straight. First Captain Mitsukai Saramochi, of Heaven's 3rd Legion, also known as Amatsukishi. He stated with a smile. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm famished. He grinned at the scowl on the blonde-haired girl's face. Such a beautiful woman, should not make such faces, Piggy-chan. My name is Ino. You bastard, hissed the kunoichi. He pouted, in such language, quite unbecoming. He barely managed to close the door as Kanai stuck into the wood. Tsunade crashed down into her chair with a sigh. Now we have an undead army that we know nothing about, and we have to help Naruto or he's going to go insane and destroy the world. She looked up to see all the members of her Anbu team caught in a torrent of emotions. You're dismissed. Naruto was storming around the woods outside Konoha. Bastards, he hissed, all of them. He sniffed the air. What do you want? He snarled at the 2 figures that had just appeared. Come eat with us, replied Itachi. Saramochi will be meeting us there. I believe you liked ramen? The blonde emitted a black aura and stood to his full height. You know as well as I do that Naruto doesn't exist anymore, Itachi. His eyes began to darken. Are you mocking me? He growled. He only ceases to exist because you are giving in to the darkness, came another voice from his right. You're becoming weak. Naruto turned his black eyes on the form of Saramochi. Don't make me kill you, holy man. The silver-eyed man slid his cloak up to reveal his gauntlet-clad hands. It's as I thought. He's becoming more volatile in the village. You forget with whom you're speaking, Naruto-kun. He leapt back as the blonde charged. A black energy swirling around his body. He's willingly drawing on the darkness. Tenkan, celestial sphere. He quickly snatched the orb out of the air and landed on the ground, his finger pointing at the fast-approaching blonde, Tenrai Tama. Divine bullet. The ray of light tore through Naruto's shoulder. He, however, ignored it and pressed forward. Come on, Archangel, is that it? He shouted and slashed at the black-haired man. His claws raked the metal of Saramochi's gauntlets. Kill! Echoed a voice in the young man's mind. Control yourself, shouted Saramochi. The darkness is consuming you. He jerked his head back and laid out into a backflip, slamming his plated boot into Naruto's chin. The blonde continued his momentum and landed in a crouch, launching forward with a black swirling orb in his right hand. He smirked as a finger was pressed to his forehead. Go ahead, it's your job after all, he sneered, killing demons. He stood up straight, Saramochi's finger never leaving its target, though that would mean you failed too, and I don't think you want that, right? Why are you being so hostile? Questioned the silver-eyed man. 3 days ago we were laughing and having a drink, what's changed? The blonde frowned. Kill. Echoed the voice again. It's getting worse, he gasped, clutching his head. Being here, I can hear him. He's trying to come. I can't hold him back. He let out a shrill cry as a black energy exploded off his body. I won't, he shouted in his mind, I'll beat you. The voice only laughed sinisterly and faded away. Naruto blinked at Saramochi. What did I do? You lost control, replied Itachi, and attacked Saramochi. The blonde only then realized there was a finger pointed at his skull. I'm sorry, he whispered, seeing everything, everyone, it's easier for him to come to the surface. He flinched as blood poured from his shoulder. You really had to shoot me then? Saramochi's face shifted from serious back to his normal smile. Ah, Gomen. He scratched the back of his head. You were being quite persistent, Naruto-kun. He glanced at the sizable hole in his charge's arm. We should get that patched up. Naruto nodded and all 4 began to the hospital, taking to the rooftops, instead of the ground. I don't want to be here, sighed the blonde. I don't want to see anyone, he mumbled with his head down. It's unavoidable, replied Itachi. Our stipulation was to stop the oncoming tide of darkness. He pointed in the direction of the hospital, that way. Kisame shifted Naruto on his back as they landed on the steps to the Konoha hospital. Yes, well, we still don't know how to put the bastards down and keep them there. He turned to Saramochi. You're the great demon slayer, do you have any ideas? A demon slayer is not the same as an undead slayer, Kisame-kun, he replied. And why are we at the hospital? Questioned the shark man, shouldn't he heal on his own? Itachi let out a frustrated sigh. You've already answered your own question. Saramochi is a demon slayer. It would make sense that his attacks would be focused on combating their special abilities. Kisame blinked. Huh? Naruto groaned. His attacks stop my healing. It's also the same reason that he was assigned as the holder of our contract. Should I get out of hand, his job is to vanquish me. Saramochi kept up his smile, but inwardly frowned. That would be near impossible. As they were about to enter the hospital, a female voice rang down the street. What happened? Shouted Sakura as she closed in on them. She made several seals and her hands began to glow. I've never seen a wound like this. Naruto couldn't help the bitterness that crept into his voice. That's because you missed Sasuke jamming his fist through me. He frowned as the words came out. I didn't mean that, I'm sorry. He didn't smile, but he didn't scowl either, as she helped him to his feet. Arigato, Sakura. Oh, she stammered with a blush, it's nothing, I'm glad I could help. She flinched as she noticed the small amount of blood covering her hands. It wasn't red, it was black. You should wash that off, said Naruto as he noticed her expression. I don't know what it'll do if it stays on too long. With a short wave, he and his companions walked towards the nearest restaurant. Saramochi grinned and gave a small bow to the girl. I think we may have found our salvation. Kisame let out a burp that was a far cry from polite and rubbed his slightly swollen stomach. Ah, that was good. Must you be so crude? Questioned Itachi as he placed his last bite of sushi into his mouth. Saramochi slurped up his last bit of noodles and smiled. This is quite good, we don't really have anything like this back home. He looked over to his blonde-haired companion who was absent-mindedly prodding a piece of beef. Naruto-kun, you should eat, you'll need to be in top shape. He emphasized his point by giving a thumbs up. Naruto was about to reply when he sensed several people approaching. We have company. As if on cue, the former Rookie 9 and Team Guy filled the small restaurant. The blonde demon smirked at the different looks on the faces of his former friends. He finally landed on the face of Sasuke. Traitor! Screamed the voice in the back of his mind. Kill! He gripped the table as his claws began to elongate and his canines increased in length. Stop, he chanted to himself. Stop, 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 stop. Ah, cooed Saramochi with a grin. Visitors, to what do we owe the occasion? He kept his gaze on the new people, but was observing Naruto out of the corner of his eye. At least he is fighting now. Itachi was also focused on his little brother. I do not believe this is a social call? You would be correct, answered the tallest of the group, his long black hair reaching his lower back, and white eyes locked on Naruto. Hyuga Neji still adorned the elegant black and white uniform he did as a Junin. We have questions that require answers, and we do not intend to allow you to leave the positions you are currently in until they are answered in a manner which we deem satisfactory. And here I thought you wanted to have a nice chat about the weather over a cup of tea, retorted Kisame with a snarl, his hand instinctively going for his Samahata which was perched against the wall. Naruto scanned the group one last time and then focused on Sakura. Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. Why are you with the Akatsuki? Came the first question from Kiba, his impatience starting to show almost immediately. Well, that one is easy, replied Kisame. We aren't Akatsuki. Next question. Tenten was next. Where have you been for the past 5 years? Naruto tensed up, as did Sasuke, Ino, Sakura, and Hinata. Finally he answered, somewhere very hot. He then took a swig of his sake, and with very rude neighbors. Why are you here now? Questioned Shino. The blonde let out a dark laugh that startled everyone in the small eatery. To save the world, of course. It's what I do best after all. He then flashed a sinister smile. Although that does get a bit exhausting. Maybe I should try it the other way around. Naruto, scolded Saramochi, you are walking a fine line. He then looked up and smiled. Any more questions? As a matter of fact, interjected Ino, we know who you are, but we don't know anything about you. She smiled as the jovial expression was wiped off the archangel's face, only to be replaced by narrowed eyes. We can't really trust you on a battlefield if we don't know what kind of person we are standing beside. Sakura frowned at her friend. She hadn't seen the blonde act like this since before Shikamaru and Temari had officially declared themselves a couple. I don't believe it, she thought. It was Ino's own sadistic little quirk, to press and prod someone, to blatantly get a rise out of them. It was the way she flirted, and right now it was on full blast. She knows precisely what she's doing, thought the silver-eyed man, my past is not up for discussion. Then I'll make some observations, interjected Shikamaru. You're not a shinobi. I had already told you that, interrupted the angel. The lazy genius ignored him, and pressed on to his now captivated audience. Also from the gauntlets and greaves that adorn your hands and feet, you aren't even from an elemental nation. He leaned back against a wall and continued. The engravings on them aren't anything I've ever seen in any book, but if I had to take a guess I would say that they are seals. Shikamaru smirked at the glare he was receiving from the man he was analyzing. From what I've observed from your skirmish with Sakura and Ino, and later, your clash with Naruto. You saw that? Questioned the blonde. I'm Konoha's strategic specialist, he replied. I know everything there is to be known about whom I command. Then he turned back to the silver-eyed man, like I was saying, your fighting style is indicative of the demon-hunting monks. You summon balls of energy you call divine spheres. These are the source of your attacks. You're able to force them into your body and enhance your strength, speed, and even senses. There are even records of some monks being able to fire them from a distance. He then quirked an eyebrow at the lack of response from Saramochi. These are just basic observations, but this is my final assessment. You are not a shinobi, but you are an opponent not to be taken lightly. The silence was cut by a snort from Kisame. Boy, he's sure got you pained. Quite the observation, replied the angel. However, you've only touched the tip of the iceberg. I've fought on more battlefields and in more wars than the entire shinobi populace of Konoha combined. He then stood and placed the money for his meal on the table. Do not try to understand me, little ninja. Kisame let out a sharp whistle as his companion exited the building. I don't think I've ever seen him that worked up. I agree, perhaps it would be best to choose your words carefully around him. Nara, added Itachi with a nod. Ino was about to add something when she felt Sakura jerk her to the side. What is it? She questioned with a frown. What the hell was that? Snapped the pink-haired woman. What was what? She reiterated. Her best friend glared. You were flirting, she replied. You know what he is and what he's capable of. He marched into hell alone, for Christ's sake. Stop trying to get laid. Yay, God forbid I enjoy being alive. Snapped the blonde. At least I'm not saving myself for a dead guy. She went wide-eyed as the words left her mouth. Sakura, I'm sorry. Her apology fell on deaf ears as the pink-haired Kunoichi dashed out the building. Damn it. Leave her be, commanded Sasuke, halting Ino's pursuit. She needs to figure somethings out. That's pretty cold, Sasuke, jibbed Naruto. Shouldn't you go after your woman? The Uchiha clan leader only smirked. My wife hasn't left this building, Dobi. He stepped up behind a slightly pink-cheeked Hinata and wrapped his arms around her. She responded by leaning back against him. The question is, shouldn't you go after your woman? The situation began to envelope him. The damned have no right to love something so pure, he replied as he stood and paid for his meal. What did he mean, the damned? Questioned Lee. He only received shrugs of shoulders or a shake of the head. Sasuke, Ino, and Hinata opted to remain quiet. Itachi and Kisame stood as well. If that was all of your questions. It wasn't, interrupted Sasuke as he relinquished his hold on Hinata. I would like to speak with you, alone. He ignored the poignant stare of Kisame and the concerned look from his wife and focused solely on his brother. I will meet you in the cloister of the Uchiha compound in 2 hours, he stated plainly. Understood, replied the elder Uchiha before he exited the building, Kisame in tow. Was that smart? Questioned the shark man. He could very well attack you. Itachi only shook his head. He is a clan leader and we are under the protection of the Hokage. He would never do something so brash. On the outskirts of Konoha's training fields, Sakura was slowly making her way to the stone monument for the fallen heroes of the village. Ino's words still ringing in her head. Am I being stupid? She questioned herself. What if he fails and gets sent back to, away? Will I be alone again? I don't want to be alone. She began to trace the name of the only person she truly loved, my Naruto-kun. Flashback. Nay, Sakura-chan. What's wrong? Questioned a slightly worried Naruto. The pink-haired girl only shook her head. Will we ever get Sasuke-kun back? Of course, he shouted in reply. I made a promise of a lifetime. End flashback. I was so busy waiting for the moon that I never even felt the sun setting on me. She whispered as her tears began to fall. Ino was right. I'm in love with a dead man. It never fails to amaze me, came a voice from behind her. Turning revealed Saramochi. His black coat was nowhere in sight. How the living pine for the dead. Sakura marveled at how accurate Shikamaru's assessment had been. Covering his feet and shins were a set of boots cast out of silver and blue metal, ending right below his knees and adorned with odd symbols. The same armor covered his hands and forearms. His chest was covered by a white Chinese-style shirt, much like Tenten's, trimmed in blue. His pants were a simple black that tucked neatly into his plated boots. Around his waist was an elegant silver sash trimmed and embroidered in blue. The image on it depicted a man with wings holding a bow, ready to fire at a serpent. He smiled serenely at the girl from his perch atop one of the infamous training logs. Why do you torment yourself? Why do you love him death like you never loved him in life? Sakura gazed at him for a moment, his smile, the way his straight hair fell in a disheveled mess around his head, and his well-defined facial structure. No wonder Ino was flirting, she thought. I shouldn't have said something like that to her, she's my best friend. Sakura-san? Questioned the archangel, are you alright? The pink-haired girl snapped out of her silence and gazed back at the stone. She paused. I was barely becoming a woman, I was so confused. I thought I loved Sasuke, he was strong, smart, and powerful, the ultimate shinobi. Then before I knew it, Naruto-kun began to creep into my thoughts. At first it was only fleeting, and I brushed it off as loneliness, but even when we brought Sasuke back the thoughts didn't stop. She took a shaky breath. He always held me up above it all, never asking for anything in return, and in the end I realized that I loved him more than I could ever say. Flashback. Sakura sat on her bed mulling over the revelation that had just hit her. I love Naruto? She rolled it around until she was almost chanting it. I love Naruto-kun. She let out a girlish squeal and sprinted from her house. Finally she had spotted her target. Naruto-kun, she shouted, and flung her arms around his neck. Sakura-chan? He questioned in bewilderment. Is something wrong? She smiled up at him. Not anymore, she replied. Listen, I have to tell you something, so just listen, okay? He gave a tentative nod. I've been thinking a lot, and well, She was cut off as an explosion came from the forest. We're under attack, shouted an Anbu member on patrol. Can it wait, Sakura-chan? Questioned the blonde. I promise you can tell me as soon as we find out who's attacking us. I'll buy you ramen and you can say whatever it is, okay? That sounds great, she replied with a smile. Let's go find Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke. End flashback. I don't know what to do now, she shouted in frustration. How can I tell him I love him if I can't even speak to him? He's disgusted with me, with the way I treated him and ignored him. How could he ever love me? And now he's this shell that looks like him, a step away from destroying the world or saving it. Well, I think if you just told him everything you told me, he would be an idiot not to love you, replied Saramochi with a smile. Also remember that there is a chance that we could fail our mission, or Naruto could lose control, so do not procrastinate with your feelings, Sakura-san. A human's lifetime is too short. What's it like? Questioned the pink-haired woman as she swiped away her tears. Heaven, I mean. The angel smiled and moved to sit next to her. It's beautiful, it has a special place for everyone. There are great cities of marble and gold that have been created by the greatest sculptors and builders throughout time. Then there are the forests, with great trees that span as far as you can see. Finally there are the fields where white horses roam and the ground is perfect for farming. In the cities there are markets, which is kind of silly being as there is no money, that sell anything you can imagine. The best thing though, is that there is no hate, or envy, or malice. Everyone is at peace. Saramochi then nudged her slightly. People even fall in love. Sakura smiled a little then realized whom she was talking to. Then why are there angels like you? You're a warrior, right? I am an archangel, he replied with a nod. Long ago, before I was even born, an angel became jealous of God and sought to dethrone him. He was stripped of his wings and cast into the underworld. There his body was twisted and manipulated by the chaotic energies of the nether. His angelic name has long since been lost, but you now refer to him as Akuma. He drew in a breath and continued. He still lashes out at the heavens from his home of darkness, so we must fight to protect our home. Sometimes he gets halfway to the gates, and other times we drive him back into the furthest parts of hell. They, however, have never reached the gates of heaven. How long have you fought them? She questioned. Saramochi looked up at the sky. 10. Sakura frowned. 10 years? 1,000, sighed the silver-eyed man. 10,000 years, Sakura-san. That's how long I fought. He smiled at the look of disbelief on the young woman's face. I know, I don't look a day over 9,000, right? 10,000 years, she whispered. The oldest records of Fire Country are only 3,000 at the oldest point. Saramochi nodded. I've watched several great nations rise and fall. The elemental countries aren't the first civilizations and they certainly won't be the last. Looking over, he noticed several people approaching the monument and that the air was getting cooler. We've talked about a lot of things, Sakura-san. Now is there anything else you would like to ask? Yes, she replied as they stood and made their way back to town. You were the one sent to retrieve Naruto-kun? She received a nod of the head. I want to know everything. The silver-eyed man stopped in his tracks. Are you certain? You do not know what you are asking. Sakura only nodded with a look of determination on her face. Then come with me. I pray that you can withstand the terrors you're about to see. The two made their way quietly down the streets of Konoha, finally stopping at a hotel. What are we doing here? Questioned Sakura. And come to think of it, why are you telling me all of this? When you wouldn't tell more than you had to Tsunade-sama. Saramochi turned a grave look on her. You are the one who will save Naruto-kun from the darkness. Only you have the ability, I can see that now. As for what we are doing. He paused for a moment. We're taking a trip. Sakura took a hesitant look up at the hotel sign. It wasn't a bad place, so much as she was a young woman walking into it in the afternoon with a very handsome man. I can already hear the rumors, she thought. Her eyes glanced over to Saramochi. When she had first met him, he was unnervingly nice and non-confrontational. Now, however, his eyes were fixed and his posture was quite stiff. Now what? She questioned, trying to break the silence. No response was heard as he entered the building. Saramochi's hand went into his pocket and retrieved enough money to pay for one room for one night. After receiving a knowing grin from the receptionist, and a bidding to have fun, he turned back to the woman accompanying him. Come, the sooner we get started the better. His face betrayed no emotions and neither did his eyes. The pink-haired woman was slightly on edge as she stepped into the room. There was only one bed and it looked like a place where Jiraiya would shoot a scene from his next Icha Icha movie. Her hand went to her kunai holster, who was to say that the angel story wasn't some elaborate hoax to get her alone. Well, if that was the case, then this guy was about to have a hard time. Why do we need a hotel room? She questioned with a cocked brow. The archangel began to release the clasps that held the gauntlet on his right arm in place. Because I have no idea where you live and I'm not particularly fond of having to carry an unconscious woman around while asking for directions. As the metal glove hit the ground, it gave a momentary glimpse of intricate black designs ingrained in Saramochi's skin. Before his companion could gather her bearings, he reached out and touched the side of her head with his open palm. Sakura's pupils dilated as the warm hand came into contact with her skin. What? She could not finish her question due to the wave of blackness that washed over her. When she awoke, it was to the smell of burning flesh and a searing heat. Immediately she was on her feet with a weapon drawn. Saramochi, she shouted. She mentally cursed herself for being foolish enough to fall for an obvious trap. Where are you, bastard? That's not very nice, came the melodic voice of the black-haired man. I take it you made the journey safely? He glared as a steel dagger was pressed to his throat. Honestly, if I wanted to harm you, you would be dead by now. Where are we? Questioned the kunoichi as she lowered the weapon. He was right. She had dropped her guard more than once in their time together. A particularly strong stench came across her face and forced her to dry heave. And what is that smell? Saramochi placed a hand on her shoulder and turned her around. Welcome. He then directed her attention to the large gate that blocked their path, to the gates of hell. A gasp crossed her lips before she could repress it. The gate was made of human bones and held together with what looked to be large strips of flesh. Then it hit her. You sent me to hell, she shouted. The angel shook his head. This is my memory of the retrieval I was assigned. I just transferred your consciousness into mine. Temporarily. He gestured behind them where a figure was approaching. The only thing discernible was a white cloak, the hood covering the person's face. Saramochi frowned. And here I come. Another gasp came as the image of the cloaked angel passed through them. This is a genjutsu? Then where are our real bodies? In the hotel room. And he paused as a tinge of pink came onto his cheeks. Sakura raised an eyebrow. What? It seems when we entered my mind we'd tumbled into a compromising position, he replied. Her anger flared. How compromising. Before she could scream anymore, a large winged creature swooped down and landed in front of the gate. Who are you? Growled the monster. It looked more beast than man, although it was on its hind legs. The face resembled a dog's, an elongated snout with rows of fangs, with drool leaking from the side of its maw. Large bat-like wings expanded to what had to be a 20-meter span. His garments consisted of nothing but a cloth around his waist that was comprised of various skins. Finally, in his left hand was a jagged piece of rock in the shape of a sword. Given the creature's size and muscle mass, it could carve a mountain in two. Answer, he shouted, his voice shaking the rocks. Who I am is none of your concern, answered the cloaked form of Saramochi. Step aside, little demon. Little demon? Cried the monster. I shall show you, little man. He snorted a bit of fire as his wings began to beat, creating a storm of foul-smelling dust and rocks. A particularly hard gust blew back the hood and indeed revealed the silver eyes and black hair of the archangel. An angel? Growled the demon. Is this some kind of suicide mission? Are you an assassin? No answer was received. The monster let out a chuckle. It is of no matter, I will end you here. Die. Sakura let out a shriek as the large weapon came down on the form of the angel, creating an explosion of dirt from the amount of force in the blow. How did you survive that? The demon smirked as the dust began to clear. How was that, little angel? His black eyes went wide as he felt his weapon being tugged from his grip. What? His body was forced to follow the blade, which was chained to his arm, as it was flung into the gate. When the dirt cleared, it revealed Saramochi looking perfectly fine. I said, move, little demon. He extended his arm out to the side and a blue sphere began to form. Thank you. Celestial sphere. His fingers closed around the orb. Final warning. The demon only responded by charging in a blind rage. Foolish. He pointed his finger at the stampeding creature. Tenrai Tama. Divine bullet. The beam of light pierced the demon's eye, its brain, and finally exiting through the back of its head. My aim was off, grunted Saramochi at his more aggressive self. He gave a shrug and began to follow his other self through the destroyed gates. Come Sakura-san. We have a lot more to see. For a moment his expression softened as he gazed at her terrified face. This was nothing, I hope you are ready. A short while later they found the illusion of Saramochi kicking, punching, and throwing small impish demons. What are those? Questioned the kunoichi. They look like little people. Grunts, replied the angel. Basically they are considered fodder for our archers and divine cannons. He watched his twin parry a sharp spear with an open palm and then crash his plated foot into the gremlin's head, breaking its neck. Demons are in classes. Another demon was sent into a pool of flowing lava. D-rank demons are like these, only the most basic of functions. C-rank demons are like the gatekeeper, able to have free will, but lacking in intelligence. B-rank monsters tend to be smart and aggressive. They also possess a physical prowess but no chakra. A rank are the ones that have intelligence, and generally hold the hardest punch with amazing spiritual skills. They're cunning and deadly. Finally there are the demons that have special skills, either created by Hell's chaotic energies or through dark pacts with the current Lord of Hell. Those are S-class demons. If Naruto-kun gives into the darkness he would become an S-class demon? Questioned Sakura. Saramochi turned a grave look on her, only because we don't have anything higher than that in our records. She nodded, I see. As the march continued, Sakura witnessed things that would scare a murderer into repenting. Through observation she had deciphered what crimes had been committed. Those guilty of greed were buried up to their necks in pits of gold, while the impish demons tore at their faces. Another sight was that of a scantily clad female demon. Perfect proportions save a pair of bat-like wings and a long pointed tail, lashing a bound man. Every lash left a cut, and every cut was healed instantly, leaving the man to endure endless pain. And so it continued, each sin becoming gradually worse, until they reached a large obsidian door. Sakura gasped, what is this? This is the final gate of hell, beyond lies the Black Citadel, home to the ruler of the pits, he replied. Eyes narrowed, you mean Akuma? Saramochi shook his head, yes and no, hell is ruled by a demon lord. As heaven is ruled by an angel, they merely take the name, Akuma or God. He smiled at her confused expression. The first ruler of hell was indeed the fallen angel, but he disappeared long ago, as did the creator of heaven. This is all we know. Since then an angel is selected to rule for 10,000 years, then he is replaced by a new candidate. In hell, the one with the most cunning, or the most power rules. She gazed apprehensively at the imposing gates, noticing the intricate carving and sturdy reinforcement. Naruto-kun is beyond here, isn't he? In the darkest part of this place. Indeed, replied Saramochi as his mentally projected self stepped up to the gate. A column of flames erupted from the ground, causing the other archangel to step back into a defensive posture. Cremator. Remove yourself from this place, came a voice from the spewing lava. Slowly a form emerged, a giant man clad in a brown hood and bandoliers crossing his chest. His hands looked to be made of liquid fire and his eyes lacked iris or pupil. I will not repeat myself. I cannot do that, replied Saramochi as he released the clasp on his cloak, allowing it to flutter to the ground. I am here for the... I know what you are here for, interrupted the large man as he hoisted an inhuman-sized hammer, with one hand, and the lady does not wish for heaven to have such a weapon. The real Saramochi frowned. Stubborn fool, he's faithful to a fault. I didn't expect someone so evil to be so loyal, replied Sakura. The black-haired angel turned a confused look on her. Hell is about punishment, not about good or evil. The current lady isn't evil at all, merely very good at dealing punishment. The ruler has no mercy in her heart for the wicked. Lady? Her? Gasped the kunoichi. A genuine smile crossed Saramochi's face, the first since the journey started. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Now put a woman scorned in charge of hell and the outcome is quite terrifying. Sakura frowned. Everything he was saying now was conflicting what he said earlier. Then why do you fight each other? If the ruler isn't evil, then what is the point of battle? I said before that should a demon enter heaven it would condemn it to ruin, replied the angel with a sigh. The demons and the twisted souls are constantly trying to get into the gates merely because they wish for a small bit of respite from their constant torment. We cannot allow that, and most in the hierarchy of heaven tend to believe that no matter who the current controller of this place is, they are inherently evil. Sakura cast him a skeptical look. You don't sound convinced. My place is not to question, he replied with a slight frown, only to comply. I see, stated the pink-haired woman, ignorance is bliss? I would expect more insight for someone so old. She watched the mental projection still in a standoff with the man identified as Cremator. Cremator gave the angel in front of him a hard glare. She would have granted you an audience, had you but asked. He brandished his large weapon again, but instead you skulk around in the dark, killing our people. One would consider that an act of aggression. I had little choice in the matter, replied the angel as he extended both hands out to his sides. Thank you. Celestial sphere. A ball of light formed and hovered over each palm. Allow me entrance or I will take it, growled Saramochi. Time is of the essence. Come if you dare, winged one, answered the fire demon, as his weapon burst into flames. I will repel you. The angel simultaneously closed both hands around the two floating orbs. Tenrai no. Stop, shouted a strong female voice. The large gate opened to reveal a beautiful woman garbed in a long black cape. Black boots came to her mid-thigh, and her body was clad in what looked to be nothing more than black undergarments with a golden clasp depicting a skull in various places. Sakura thought bemusedly about Kakashi's and Jiraiya's reaction to such a scantily clad woman. The staring contest between the two hell residents and the angel continued, when Sakura actually noticed more than the woman's attire. Her hair was stark white, her skin was a pale gray, and strapped to a loosely fastened belt was a deadly-looking broadsword. Then it hit her, this woman was the Lady of Hell. The woman spoke again, breaking the kunoichi's observations. Why are you crawling around my kingdom like a rat looking for a meal? I would have greeted you. With a grand army of your strongest demons, no doubt, interrupted the angel. I suppose that would have pleased you? For me to wage a battle single-handedly? Glares intensified. I have come to take him. Where can I find the boy? He sighed at the lack of response. You cannot control him and neither can we. Let me take him and see if I can save both our worlds. The woman scoffed. Put aside countless years of battle to save a civilization that will be gone in a millennia or so? You have seen them rise and fall. Who is to say that this isn't merely the instrument of destruction? It is more than that, and you are well aware of that fact. The archangel paused and closed his eyes. You look weary. Yet we have not done battle in half a millennia. Am I to assume you know of the dark tide consuming the place of men? More than you know, she replied and began back through the gate. Come. Let us see if your saving grace can spare hell as well as heaven. Her black cape flared out dramatically as her long legs created an impressive stride. Despite who she was, Sakura couldn't help to be impressed. This woman was confident, powerful, and held an air of wisdom about her that was beyond even Tsunade. Both versions of Saramochi wore scowls as they scanned the charred rocks and destroyed bodies. What has happened here? Questioned the image that was accompanied by the woman and bear-like man. We have never driven this far in. The ruler of the pit sat down on a flat stone and crossed her arms and legs. Hell is fighting a new enemy. She ran her fingers through her white hair. I am weary, and I do not know how much longer we can withstand this. If hell should fall, then the terror of the old lords will be unleashed again. The old lords? Questioned Sakura. Saramochi nodded. Under her rule the attacks have been nothing but small incursions by insignificant groups of demons, and not by the lady's command. Under the former lords there were grand battles, lasting for months on end, led by the rulers themselves. When one would stop another would begin. Those types of conflicts have been all but a memory for the past 500 years. They are drawn to him, stated the woman, breaking the conversation after regaining her dignified posture. His dark energies call to them and they respond in force. It's all we can do to stop them, and instead of our demons dying and being reborn in the fires of hell, they are dragged into the nether to become one of the dark ones. She gestured to a scorched place that was several feet in diameter. Rifts in the ground seemed to open and the creatures crawl from them in an unending tide. Standing up, she reaffixed her hard gaze. Enough of this. This is not your problem. Take this demon and be gone. The image nodded and turned to a gate that resembled a giant cage. His eyes flashed white as tendrils of light shot from his back, 5 on the right, 5 on the left. Each one gripped a rung on the door and began to pull. What is that? Exclaimed the kunoichi with wide eyes. My wings, replied the angel. Did you think they would be covered in feathers and soft to the touch? He chuckled again. That would be completely impractical in a battle. Imagine, feathers flying everywhere. It would look like a fox raiding a chicken coop. The mentally projected form of Saramochi returned from the darkness of the cave carrying a limp and naked Naruto. His mind is broken. He should have taken his place in heaven from the start. Now he is tainted, forever to remain 2 halves, never a whole. A snort came from the large man. Pity for a demon, from an angel? He let out a gruff laugh. The wonders of the world will never cease. Silence, cremator, commanded the woman. She turned back to the angel. How do you plan on accomplishing your goals? He has issued a contract. Naruto-kun did much in his life that allowed him this consideration. He sighed and cast a look down at the withering, yet noble, form. I am hoping that by bringing back to the living plane he can find his redemption. Again the ashen woman scoffed. Only to die later of old age and become like you? A mindless soldier? Taking orders from the one placed on high and blindly charging into my domain? Her anger flared, along with her power, as he ignored her and merely continued to smile softly at his new charge. Do not ignore me, winged one. I wish you well in your battles with the tainted, stated the silver-eyed angel as he started to walk back towards the entrance. Though I would assume without Naruto-kun here, they will decrease, if not stop completely. The power that radiated from the woman faded and her scowl only deepened. Your concern for a sworn enemy is sickening. Saramochi stopped and glared over his shoulder. And your anger is toxic, though I never recall swearing you as my enemy. That is a wise choice. The lady is not a forgiving opponent, interjected cremator. One of the angel's tendrils shot out and gripped the fire demon by his leg and sent him smashing into the gates that formed Naruto's prison. Nor am I. He turned to the woman. I now take my leave, Lady of Hell. He missed the smirk that came across the lady's face at his display and merely continued on towards the entrance to the burning depths. Have you seen enough? Questioned Saramochi as he and Sakura followed his mental projection out. The pink-haired girl nodded. I know what I need to do and what is riding on my efforts. Hinata fidgeted with her tea as she stared at her husband. I don't think. I will be fine, interrupted Sasuke with a grunt. Do you think me the same foolish little boy that ran after power in my younger days? Lavender hair tossed as she shook her head. He is. She paused. I am worried for your safety. Her chair screeched along the hardwood floor as she stood and made to clean up their places. I apologize, it's not my place to question my husband's actions. As she made to take her husband's cup, his hand gently covered hers. It is your place, he stated with a frown. If I wanted a submissive wife, I would have married one of those women that chased me around the village when I was a teenager. He stood and kissed her soundly. I'll be back before nightfall. As his feet brought him towards the meeting place, he began to ponder what it was that Itachi had done to find forgiveness. Surely a simply, "I'm sorry," was not sufficient. Rounding the corner, he came face to face with the vision of so many of his nightmares, Itachi. "Good afternoon, Oto," came the soft but dangerous voice of Uchiha Itachi. "I see you've inherited Kakashi-senpai's punctuality." Sasuke glared. "He is twice the man you are, and vastly more honorable." Itachi's smile broadened as he lowered his hood. "Though I do not think we are here to argue semantics, you've questions about my motives, no doubt." "I don't give a damn about your motives," spat the clan leader. "I want to know why you did everything you did if, in the end, you're so sincerely sorry that you were granted mercy." Itachi smiled slightly and sat on the ground, gently leaning back, and resting his head on his hands. "There is no need to shout. You are likely to concern Hinata-chan at this rate." He cast a sideways glance at his fuming brother. "Congratulations, she is quite the blushing little bride." Sasuke's eyes flashed red at the jibe. "You are sailing into very dangerous waters, Oni-san." "Ah, Gomen," he sat up and locked his onyx eyes onto Sasuke's spinning Sharingan. "Your eyes are complete." "I lack the final stage," replied the man as the red faded and was replaced by black. "Only your eyes are mastered." Itachi sighed and let a weary look cross his face. "My eyes have seen too much. Too much pain, too much slaughter, and too much greed." "You killed everyone to test your strength," interjected Sasuke, his words laced with a venomous tone. "To find your limits, you pushed past everyone else's." "The flames of the Uchiha were fading. It had to be brought through the crucible," replied the elder man. "I knew my actions were harsh, but to stop the taint of prejudice and corruption from touching your pure flame, I had to destroy it utterly." He smiled as the scowl on his brother's face deepened. "The mirage between yourself and Hinata-chan is proof enough of that. Do you think that an Uchiha would have ever been allowed to marry a Hyuga?" "I love Hinata, that would have been enough for father," shouted Sasuke as his eyes began to stain. Itachi was on his feet. "It would have never been enough." "And what about mother? She was a gentle and caring." "And was already dead when I arrived," interrupted Itachi, causing Sasuke's face to fall. "He had beaten her." He paused and his eyes narrowed. "Again, it was my every intention to leave you both to reforge the clan. But apparently father had enough of her good-natured defiance." "Your delusions about the great clan leader were just that, delusions, brought on and held up through lies and cover-ups." Black eyes shifted back skyward. "It haunted me every day from that day forward. I would always question my actions. Did the end justify the means? But now I see you, defiant, strong, and happy. It was all worth it." "Why would your father do something like that?" questioned a voice from the corner of a building. Both men turned to see a teary-eyed Hinata staring at them in a mix of shame, for spying, and pain. To think someone would kill their own wife. "Because of me," stated Itachi. He turned to Sasuke. "Love was never enough for father if the woman was not an Uchiha." Hinata stepped from behind the corner and next to her husband, her fingers intertwining with his. "You experienced this." It was a statement, not a question. "I think I understand now. It would have been the same if my father had told me that I could not marry Sasuke-kun. Heartbreak isn't as kind as a kunai or a jutsu. It kills you slowly, but doesn't always bring death. Your mother was killed because she stood up for you. She was beautiful," stated Itachi with a frown. "The first of her family to become a shinobi, and she was a magnificent ninja." He turned a flaring Sharingan on both Sasuke and Hinata. "And when I refused the one father told me I was to marry, in favor of this other woman, I was threatened. Told I would be expelled from the clan." "His threat stopped you then?" questioned Sasuke. "You didn't leave the—" "He had her killed," interjected Hinata, tears now flowing down her face. "You defied him, and instead of losing the strongest Uchiha in several decades, it was easier to break your will." "A mission gone wrong," spat Itachi. "I never had a doubt about what it really was, though. I suppose I could talk about my noble intentions and whatnot, but in the end it was pure revenge." He stood up and ripped a kunai from his leg holster, slowly and purposefully made his way to his brother and Hinata. Sasuke was immediately in his path. both Sharingan wielders not blinking. The youngest Uchiha never flinched as his father's hand gripped his and placed his weapon in it. In one swift movement, Itachi had Sasuke's fingers wrapped firmly around the knife's handle and pointed straight at his own heart. You have every right to hate me. So take your vengeance. Sasuke prided himself to be swift and merciful to the enemy, bringing death with a confident stroke. Now with everything in the light, his hand faltered. Lowering the weapon he released his dujutsu. No. Why do you hesitate? Questioned Itachi with a frown. The clan leader turned and started back towards the main house. He gestured for them both to follow. Itachi's frown was replaced by a confused look as Hinata gently shoved him forward. What is this? A fresh start, stated the lavender-haired woman as she smiled and caught up to her husband. For everyone. In the shadows of a building, black eyes watched the scene unfold. And as onyx orbs flashed a sapphire blue, Naruto realized that the darkness inside him never felt so subdued. With a fanged grin he began his way back to the hotel. A new light had shined on him that afternoon. Maybe the angel was right in bringing him here. Sakura blinked several times. Finally the room began to come into focus. She groaned and sat up. My head. A side effect came a soft, yet amused, voice. The pink-haired girl turned to see the silver-eyed angel sitting in a plush recliner. My apologies, but now I think you should go. You have a job to do. Slowly, Sakura got to her feet, gave a determined nod, and exited the room. Please don't fail. I don't think I am going to be of as much assistance as I previously thought, whispered Saramochi as he crumpled up a piece of paper and launched it at the wall. He glared at the piece of parchment and crossed his arms. Something's coming. Something, but what? After a moment of thought he got up and exited the room. Shortly after, the maid service came in and noticed the crumpled note. Opening she could only stare at the elegant seal adorned with a cherub playing a harp. The writing was nearly illegible, like someone scrawled it while running. The last line was the only thing she could discern. It read, "Situation deemed irreparable, terminate the crisis immediately." Meanwhile Sakura was running through the streets of Konoha, intent on finding the young man that held her heart. As her legs pounded the stone streets of the Leaf Village she racked her brain, trying to recall Naruto's thoughtful places. Then it hit her and she skidded to a halt. He always went there when he had something on his mind. Turning about, she launched herself towards the Hokage monument. Flashback. What are you doing up here, Naruto? Yamato wanted to see us for the debriefing. Two blue eyes locked her with a glare that nearly sent the air from her lungs. Naruto had a lot of faces, but this deathly serious one was enough to send a Sannin scurrying under a rock. There's nothing to debrief. I was an idiot. As always. I lost my cool. As always. And I nearly got you killed. Well, at least that one's new, nay? What happened up there, Naruto? I've never seen you like that, questioned Sakura as she sat down next to him. The Kyuubi's chakra was so violent. Naruto nodded solemnly. Not a nice person, the Kyuubi. Leaning back he crossed his arms behind his head. I just wanted to get Sasuke back so badly, and at that point I didn't care how I got the power to do that. End flashback. Sakura frowned as she cleared 4 steps at a time. In that moment, Naruto had shown he was more like Sasuke than either of them would like to admit. As she came to the edge of the Hokage monument she spotted him, perched on the head of the 4th, as always. She couldn't help but watch him. He was taller now, his skin a golden color, and his blonde hair was so vibrant it seemed to absorb the rays of the sun. With no forehead protector on, his hair fell in a disheveled mess. He had apparently shed his red and black cloak, revealing a very simple black shinobi outfit. The only difference was that he was sporting a dull gray set of forearm and shin guards. A chill shot up her spine. He was beautiful, in a very dark manner. Another affinity with Sasuke. She frowned. That was the problem. She wanted the loud and eccentric 15-year-old she fell in love with, not a Sasuke clone. You shouldn't stare, Sakura, he growled without looking back. It's not polite. Hesitantly she stepped up next to him. This close she could see his clawed hands and black eyes, reminding her that he was extremely dangerous. And may I sit? Naruto turned his head and although his iris and pupils were gone, absorbed into the inky blackness that seemed to literally radiate from his soul, Sakura knew his gaze was locked on her. You're afraid of me, aren't you? He didn't let her respond. Of course you are. I can smell it on you. That and the angel. She blushed crimson and folded her hands in her lap. Oh, yes, well. Saramochi showed me some things. Looking up showed Naruto with a cocked brow. He showed me your retrieval. Ah, did you enjoy the show? He snapped. She had seen him vulnerable, again. Sakura glared at him. Despite everything, I never liked seeing you hurt, never. She mumbled the last bit, then remembered when she had tears in her eyes and asked him to bring back Sasuke. Later on in her life, when her perception became a bit more refined, she replayed that scene in her mind and swore she could see his heartbreak. You hate us, don't you? Sasuke, Kakashi-sensei, Jiraiya-sama, Tsunade-sama, the third, the fourth. She took a shaking breath. Me. We've thrust problem after problem onto you and expecting you to come through it unscathed. Tears began to slip down her face. Sasuke, screaming for you to save him from himself. Kakashi-sensei, for just expecting you to get stronger without helping. Jiraiya-sama, for trying to see the fourth in you. Tsunade-sama, for burdening you with her dead memories. The third, for being the closest thing to a father you had then dying. The fourth, for sealing the Kyuubi inside you, and me? For never giving you a chance, rejecting you whenever you asked for just a walk, and. Her sobs began racking her body to the point of unintelligible speech. Naruto started. Hesitantly he reached over to touch his hand to her shoulder, but recoiled at the last moment. No. Sakura looked up in confusion. No. The blonde frowned deeper. I made my decisions, they were good ones. What I hate is myself. He nodded slightly. Yes, now if that's all. The pink-haired girl jumped to her feet. That is not all. She shouted. Sucking in a sharp breath, she reached down, grabbed his hand, and jerked him to his feet. I want to show you something. Before he was able to give a response, she was pulling him at a fairly impressive speed through the village, towards Team 7's old training ground. Looking down, he marveled at how her small hand fit into his demonically twisted claws, soft and gentle, wrapped around harsh and unforgiving. A true yin and yang, an innocent and a demon. His fingers curled tighter around hers and he began to match her speed. Again, the shrieking darkness inside was nothing more than a quiet murmur. Finally they landed, and his eyes began to roam and his thoughts to wander. There was the tree he was snared in on their first day, then the practice logs that every great shinobi had been tied to, it seemed. He had fought to his death to keep all of this sacred, and he had lost sight of that, but here with her his vision was beginning to clear. Sakura tugged on his arm, pulling him till they were standing in front of the memorial stone. Look, she pointed to a name. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto could only stare dumbly as she began to speak again. A lot of people didn't want your name on there. She glared at the memory. Flashback. Don't you dare defile our monument with that thing's name. Shouted an Anbu member. Still the stoneworker began to carve. I said STO. He was cut off as a large contingent of shinobi appeared between the crowd and the monument. Try it. Came the cold, sharp voice of Uchiha Sasuke, and we won't leave enough of you to be buried. End flashback. Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke, Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama, and everyone else from the rookies came out to stop the crowd. She paused and turned to him. Naruto looked at war with himself. They were trying to forget that you ever existed. And we were going to kill them if they tried to erase our memories of you. Slowly he slipped his hand from hers and ran a clawed finger over the name. Do you know what hell is, Sakura? He stood rigid, his fangs showing slightly as he spoke. I could tell you a million different ways, and still it would be different. Everyone has his own personal hell. A slow, haggard breath, then. What was yours, Naruto-kun? My masks, stated the blonde as he grimaced at the memory. Every mask I ever wore, a physical asphalt to go with the mental, for every memory I had. He drew his free hand through his hair. They would appear as me. A memory would flash, and then they would proceed to hurt me. He took a large gulp of air. The worst was the happiness, like the night when you asked me on a date, just to ask about Sasuke. I smiled so bright, just to hide my hurt. So as I watched the memory, a clone of myself would smile brightly, while tearing me apart. Sakura could only stare in abject horror at the thought. I'd heal, then it would be repeated. All I could ever think was, what did I do to deserve this? He turned to see the pink-haired woman nearly in tears. I wonder, Sakura, what your hell would be. Then he turned and began to walk away. They will be coming soon. It would be, she cut him off, it would be. Naruto looked over his shoulder and frowned. That was rhetorical. Sakura shook her head violently as she forced her sobbing into submission, allowing for speech. It would be. She looked up into his frowning face. Now was her chance. The entire fate of humanity relying on her next phrase, watching you die again and again, without being able to tell you what you mean to me. The blonde glared at her. What the hell was that supposed to mean? What are you? He attempted to question her, but was cut off when she lunged at him. Instinctively he prepared to defend, bringing his hands up to guard and prepare an attack. He was surprised when her arms didn't strike, but embraced. Sakura, I think my hell has already changed, she murmured into his chest, after holding you like this. Never being able to do it again, that would be hell. Pulling her head back she smiled softly at his surprised face. Is it that big of a shock? That the stupid little girl fell in love with the brave little boy? Naruto started down at her. Sakura-chan, I. At hearing the stuttering affection in his voice, the pink-haired girl lost all pretensions and pulled him down roughly, forcing her lips onto his, embracing him with everything she had. As she deepened the kiss she felt his elongated fangs puncture her lip, and she didn't care. Her past 5 years taught her something. True love, sometimes, hurts. As her red-hot blood flowed into his mouth Naruto felt something in the back of his mind stir. It was the darkness, and the blood had awoken it with a newfound fervor. He immediately jerked back from her completely. As he did so a screeching sound ripped through his ears, as a dagger-like pain shot through his brain. Chan. Sari. Kai. Her. Rai. The pink-haired girl got the message and was gone in a flash to find the archangel. Saramochi was sitting on the steps to a large fountain, deep in thought, when he heard what sounded like his name. Is that Sakura-san? Sakura spotted him and was quickly trying to pull him along. Naruto. Told. You. Had to hurry, he's in pain. The words she spoke didn't bother him as much as the blood that was dripping from the corners of her mouth and flowing down between her bosom. What happened? He shouted as he allowed himself to be pulled along. I kissed him, and she paused as they kicked off a building. My blood went into his mouth. Sakura-san, this is very important and you have to be completely honest with me. He gave her a stern look. Are you a virgin? What? She stammered. Answer. He shouted. Sakura stared at him. Why? Yes. After her answer, Saramochi vanished, leaving her dumbfounded and struggling to catch up. When she landed in the clearing she saw a terrifying sight, as did the other shinobi that sensed a disturbance. Naruto's size had doubled, and now his body was slightly hunched over. His facial structure was elongated, and now his fanged teeth were overlapping his bottom jaw. The small amount of cerulean that had began to come through during their conversation was swallowed by the blackness again. He looked like an animal that was forced to walk upright. Naruto. She shouted and attempted to reach for him. Sakura, stay back, shouted a frightened-looking Sasuke as he appeared and attempted to restrain her. Beside him was Itachi, Kisame, and Hinata. What the hell is that? He questioned with a grunt. More ninjas were appearing, Kakashi, and some of the rookies. Saramochi had apparently arrived and attempted to subdue him. Naruto had flung him into the forest. As he stepped from the broken trees he was clutching his side and blood was coming from his mouth. That is Naruto-kun. Bullshit, shouted Kiba, that is not Naruto. The archangel's eyes never left the blonde, turned, demon. Sakura-san's blood has awoken the demon. Kakashi lifted his forehead protector. Itachi and Sasuke also revealed their blood limit. Shikamaru, shouted the silver-haired Junin. The tactician formed the rat seal. Right. Kagemane no jutsu. Shadow imitation technique. Stop, shouted Saramochi, but it was too late. The shadow bind had taken hold. Naruto struggled for a moment before his body began to melt into blackness. Shikamaru looked around in confusion, before he was tackled to the ground by the archangel. He is darkness, do not attempt that technique again. Now what? Grumbled Kisame as he prepared to attack. Saramochi flinched at the pleading looks from Naruto's gathered friends. He paused and sent an apologetic look to Sakura. I have to. No, shouted the woman, fighting with newfound strength against her teammate. Please don't. I can save him. The angel ignored her and began to release the clasps on his gauntlets. O Prince of the Heavenly Host, by the power of God, cast into oblivion darkness and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. He paused slightly as his steel gloves hit the ground and his eyes flashed a burning white, Amen. After his words were uttered, a storm of energy began to collect into his body, creating a localized tornado of wind. He opened his eyes and a tear ran down his cheek. I'm so sorry Naruto, I failed you, Tentai. Heavenly body. He hesitated a moment as his hair and tattoos began to glow a brilliant white, while his tendril-like wings sprouted from his back. Finally he swallowed his sorrow and hesitation, Tenbatsu. Wrath of God. While the other shinobi could only stare in awe, Sakura was still pleading through flowing tears. Please. I'm begging you. Please don't kill him. I have to, came the otherworldly voice of the transformed angel. It's my duty. Sakura whirled her elbow back and caught an unsuspecting Sasuke upside the head, causing him to relinquish his grip. In a blur of movement she was positioned between Naruto and Saramochi, her back to the monster and her Anbu sword prepared to strike the angel. Fuck your duty. He's a good person that's just lost his way. Saramochi frowned. Losing yourself to the darkness is not the same as losing yourself in the countryside. There is no finding your way back out. He dropped into a low stance, as if holding a spear. In a flash of white flames, a long silver and gold lance was aimed directly at Naruto and inadvertently at Sakura. Sakura-san. Please move, or I will move you. Try it, growled the kunoichi as she charged the imposing figure of light. If he becomes a demon, then I'll be right beside him. Drawing back she slashed down at an angle. She was halted as one of the tendrils wrapped around her body and then flung her into a tree. Bastard. Then I have no choice, whispered Saramochi as he launched at Naruto and prepared to strike. Sakura closed her eyes slowly, not wanting to see him die, but the fatal blow never came. Instead a loud clang rang through the clearing. Kisame. What are you doing? Shouted the angel, his lance impacting the solid form of Samehada. The shark man grinned. I have no idea, but this don't feel right. A kunai was pressed to Saramochi's neck, turning his head revealed two spinning red orbs. You will stop immediately or we will be your opponents, stated Itachi. You're forgetting we ain't forgetting nothing, shouted Kisame as he pushed the angel back, especially the mistakes we've made. We've made our own contract, not to let good people get killed needlessly. Saramochi vaulted off of the blade and landed in a crouch. Standing up straight he found himself surrounded by shinobi. I don't want to, he whispered. Then an explosion of energy ripped off of him, but I will. It's my duty to my god. Fuck your god, shouted a harsh voice. Turning her head, Sakura saw them. They had gotten the urgent message, if you do not back away, we will destroy you, stated another voice. Tears welled up in the pink-haired girl's eyes. The Suna shinobi had arrived and Gaara wasn't about to lose his own personal savior. The archangel glared at the new arrivals. Even if you strike me down, I will complete my mission. It's why I was assigned this task. Then there is no more to discuss, boomed Jiraiya from atop a freshly summoned Gamabunta. Now, to see who's going to attack first, your move. Naruto watched the scene unfold in a deep fascination. They were going to fight for him, and going up against the fully released powers of an angel, die for him. Suddenly the screeching erupted again. This time though, it felt as if something was being forced down instead of up. He noticed Saramochi's stance relax as he finally blacked out. Naruto, shouted Sakura, catching him mid-fall. Thankfully he was back to his old size, is he? That's impossible, murmured Saramochi as he approached the demon. His progress was halted by sand wrapped around his ankles and several drawn weapons. The darkness has withdrawn, for now. His seals and hair returned to its normal black color. Finally his lance vanished in the same fashion it came. I want you out of my village, hissed Tsunade, arriving late and only catching the tail end of the situation. I want you out immediately and don't you dare return. Or I'll kill you myself. Sakura glared at the man that she considered a new friend. You're going to kill him? No response, I see. Just a mindless fool. Saramochi turned and made his way towards the front gate without a word, picking up his gauntlets on the way. I'm sorry. How is he Hokage-sama? Questioned Sasuke. He's in a coma, answered Tsunade with a sigh of relief. Standing back up she smiled at all of them. All of you, to stand up to something like that for him. He means so much to all of you. I'm proud to call you Konoha Ninja, and Konoha allies. Something like what, Hokage-sama? Questioned a slightly confused Rock Lee. Gaara crossed his arms, his sand retreating back into his gourd. We were fortunate his heart was not in the battle. Jiraiya nodded. He would have buried us. I've never felt so much power in my life. That night in the forest of Fire Country, Saramochi was glaring through his campfire at the new arrival. I said I'm not going to do it. He made it retreat. There's still time. The cloaked figure didn't move. Do not fail again, Saramochi, you do not. I will not, shouted the archangel as he got to his feet. You haven't seen it. The love they have for him. It's more than enough to save him. The figure stood elegantly. You dare defy the will of God? Saramochi stiffened. For 10,000 years he'd followed along the path of light, never wavering. Now when faced with possibly the most important task to be assigned to him, he faltered. The power of human love is overwhelming. Not even the creature inside Naruto could withstand it. Was that worth giving up everything? What would happen to him if he did defy the one on high? Would he be killed instantly? Would he be cast into hell? Or the void? As the image of Sakura's determined face flashed through his mind, he straightened his body and narrowed his eyes. I defy you. Without a word the figure vanished and Saramochi slumped down to his knees. What have I done? Sakura paced anxiously up and down the hallway of the hospital. Please Sakura-san. You are making me dizzy, pleaded a slightly miffed Itachi. The pink-haired girl looked up at Elder Uchiha and glared. Shut up, I don't want to hear it from you. It's half your fault all of this is happening. Don't be so hasty Sakura, interrupted Kakashi, before she began one of her rage-filled assaults. The past is the past, but more recently he's the reason that Naruto is not impaled on a lance. Kisame slapped Itachi on the back and then threw an arm around him. See, we're not so bad, just misunderstood. His smile faded as everyone stared at him as though he was insane. Alright, maybe we're just a little bad. Before he could push the point any further he was cut off by Tsunade exiting the operating room. As she rounded the corner she came face to face with the expectant faces of her shinobi. I don't know, she stated with a heavy heart. This is beyond me. His blood is so thick it shouldn't move through his veins, and his heart hardly beats, and his lungs are actually atrophied from disuse. What is your point? Questioned Itachi. Naruto-kun is technically dead, we understand that. Is there any indication that he will recover from his current state in a prompt manner? Tsunade glared. Why is it so important that he wake up? Kisame shrugged. You're forgetting the original reason we're here. The bad guys are still coming. And Naruto is a monster on the battlefield. And I assume that without the angel your power is cut in half, interjected Shikamaru. Perhaps expelling him from the village was a bit rash, Hokage-sama. The fifth sighed in exasperation. I stand behind my decision. She flopped unceremoniously down into a lobby chair and attempted to mull over the situation. On the one hand they could attempt to evacuate the village, but if the information from Naruto's group was right it wouldn't matter, they would just be postponing the inevitable. Besides he wouldn't have left if he didn't want to, added Jiraiya. The only reason someone that strong moves from their current target is because they want to. The Toad Sannin took a heaving sigh and stood up. We should fortify the village, Sada. Won't work, interrupted Kisame. Tried that in rain, they were through the walls in 4 seconds flat. They have these huge things with them, they look like dragons, with long teeth and really sharp fangs, and… Itachi sighed. Kisame was off on a tangent and if he continued in his vivid description then even the great copy ninja and the 2 Sannin would be heading for a place of refuge. What he's trying to say is that walls are like rice paper to them. Are you suggesting we run out and meet them? Questioned Asuma. That's just asinine. Sasuke groaned. Naruto isn't even here and we're making up his plan. How does he do that? Gaara leaned against a wall and began speaking. It's irrelevant, Naruto is unconscious and that man will not return. Therefore this battle will have to consist of the sand and leaf. After receiving a nod from the Godem he continued, we will send the villagers from both villages into the safe houses, then we will fortify the walls. Ino raised her hand. Why not send the villagers east, that way we could at least be sure they're safe. If the enemy overtakes Konoha then there is no one left to protect them, replied Neji. This is the last shinobi village still standing that has any sort of power, if we fall. He trailed off, not quite able to finish his sentence. They all knew what was at stake, but to put it into words would be like adding extra weight to an already overloaded ship. Then we'll fight, shouted Ino with a look of determination in her eyes. We have to, come on. This is the same village that defeated the nine-tailed demon, sort of. She gave a nervous smile and stopped her speech quite short. A door slowly opened, so quietly no one noticed, and a barefoot stepped into the hallway. Then another and another till the person was positioned directly behind the blonde kunoichi. The person was garbed in black with dark gray armoring in strategic places, as to not inhibit movement or agility. Finally, after not being noticed for several moments, the person spoke. "You're right, Ino. This village destroyed the Nine Tails. And we'll beat back whatever this is." Everyone turned to see Naruto standing in the hall, looking as disheveled as ever, but wearing a smile. His teeth were still elongated and his whisker marks remained, but now his eyes were back to the clear blue they were when he was still containing the Kyuubi and not part of it. "Sorry I made you guys wait." He gazed at the form of his old team leader. "I got lost on the road of life." Before anyone else could move, another voice broke through the hallway. "Indeed, it's quite a long road. Even for those of us that have wandered it for what seems like an eternity." Everyone turned to see Saramochi removing an ornate helmet and smiling at them. Immediately they were on guard. He held up his hands to show that he meant no harm. "I apologize for my actions earlier. A long time ago I was a man of defiance. That got me killed. Then I was an angel of utmost obedience, and that has me blinded." His mouth curved into a grin and he dropped his hands. "Ignorant loyalty has left me with a bitter taste in my mouth, it seems." "What changed your mind?" questioned Naruto as he stepped out into the hallway to get a clear view of the angel. The blonde admired the form of the seraph in his full armor. It was truly a sight to behold. His question though was only answered with a grin. Flashback. "So you intend to follow through with this plan of yours?" questioned a woman garbed in black. "You understand that any help that we could have given was rebuked the moment you defied him." She watched as the raven-haired archangel pulled on his armor, still he gave no response. "Will you repeat your past mistakes?" Yusho took a hesitant step forward. "You're being foolish." Saramochi shrugged. "Perhaps." A short pause and a sigh. "When I still lived as a man, did you know we worshipped many gods? A god for the sun and moon, one for war and another for love, and then there was one to rule them all. I was ignorant then as I am now. So as my death educated me, so will this battle and the coming events. Fear not for my safety. There was twice this number when we sieged Troy. But that's impossible." She paused and only managed a disbelieving stare. "If it were true, that would make you." Saramochi only graced her with his serene smile, then ripped his spear out of the ground, strapped his shield and sword to his back, and stepped to the edge of the cliff. "I still have faith that Naruto-kun can beat this." As he looked down, he saw the shinobi of Konoha scurrying around the village preparing for war. "I go into this with a clear heart and a valiant soul," he stated as he looked back over his shoulder. I am not sure we will see each other again, Yusho. Be well." And he gave a pause and another chuckle. "Scene of my deeds for an eternity." Before he could descend to the village, a small hand reached out and gripped him. Yushu's hood fell back to reveal a gorgeous woman with striking opal eyes. "I do not know where they originate from, but at the head of every army is a leader. He radiates the aura that gives them life. Strike him down and his minions will fall." Hesitantly she released him. "Though I've never seen an army of this size, the basic rules should apply." With a swift movement her hood was back in place. "Go now, your humans are dying by the handful." After receiving a grateful nod, Yusho watched him descend into the impending fray to an uncertain end, most likely death. What of his eternal soul though? Surely he would be cast out of heaven, but to where? Slowly a tear streaked down her face, then another, till she was weeping openly. It was funny, in her human life she was terrified of death, but since becoming an angel she became secure in the knowledge that should you be struck down you would merely be reborn. But this really could be the last time she would see Saramochi. Barely able to make out his form through her tears, a bit of her heart went with him, for he was merely protecting the Creator's greatest creation, and maybe for another reason that she could not admit. "Be well and strong." Normally she would have addressed him by his seraph name, but he had cast that aside and now is more man than ever before. With a cracking voice she uttered the last bit of her prayer, "Brave, brave warrior." As the wind blew she disappeared. End flashback. Kisame snorted. "So you were some attention-seeking, glory hound when you were alive? That's freaking hilarious. I mean, who would have thought?" Quiet little Amatsu. He was cut off by Saramochi's light voice. I single-handedly controlled the fate of 2 countries by my action and my inactions. I killed a man that was said to be the son of a god. I struck down the prince and commander of the most powerful country in the world. In a great war one struck down so many that death approached me, claiming I was killing too many warriors and that the river to the afterlife was being choked off. When my friend was struck down, it took a force of seraphim to halt me from sacking an entire city alone, in my rage. In the end I was hailed as the greatest warrior and many kings claimed lineage to me. He turned to look at the Sharkman's gobsmacked expression. That is who I was. My earthly name translated in an ancient tongue meant the embodiment of grief and glory in war. Itachi smirked and broke the now looming silence. I am to assume that the transgressions of such a warrior will not go unnoticed then? Or unpunished, added the archangel as he held his smile. He was not lying by any stretch. The last angel that went against the will of God was cast into the void. Perhaps that should have been Saramochi's first sign that all was not well in paradise? Yes, the power of heaven would come crashing down on him, but now was not the time for such thoughts. A battle was looming. Breaking from his thoughts, he smiled at Naruto. That is enough about a forgotten lifetime. I'm glad my faith was well placed, Naruto-kun. You seem to have destroyed the darkness. You now shine like the sun. The young man looked over at Sakura and smiled. I had too much to protect to be willing to destroy it all. A blur of pink and red collided with him. Nay, Sakura-chan, isn't this a bit rough for a newly recovered MMPHF? Her lips stopped his chiding and he had no desire to protest. Finally, after a harsh hacking from Jiraiya, they broke apart. But only at the lips, for Sakura refused to let her light go again. It was odd, he started. When the beast came to the surface I was set on annihilating everything. But when I saw your power and felt the sadness in you, my mind became muddled. He took a shaky breath. Then when all of my friends were ready to fight you to protect me, it became clear. I was not the monster. Monsters have no friends. Sasuke walked up to him and gave him a once-over. So you sure you're back, Dobi? I don't know if I'll ever be Naruto again. He held up his hands to stop incoming protests. Not 100%. But I hope you can love me just like you loved him. Despite his reasonable stature, he tumbled to the ground as his fully grown friend's dog piled on top of him. Don't be stupid, of course we love you. Naruto-kun, back off, Ino pig. Can't you two stop for a minute? Shut it, trouble so oof. Akamaru, get off of Shikamaru. As the exchange continued, Saramochi stepped up next to the Godem. Before she could offer thanks or an apology, she was silenced. They will come for me. When they do, please keep your shinobi away. This does not need to go beyond me. It's like that then, is it? Questioned an eavesdropping Jiraiya. I can't say we'll be able to restrain Naruto. He loves his friends too much for that. And I dare say that you are one of his most important people. Indeed, he's a good man. The angel's voice cracked slightly. I'm a bit envious. Tsunade gave him a bemused smile. Why is that? By his age I was leading the most fearsome group of warriors in the world and had slain many men. He let out a heaving sigh. I never got to stop and have a childhood. In a flash his face was back into his schooled mask. I will go and see to it that the city is fortified and that everyone is moved into the shelter. Though I doubt it will do much good, it will put the people at ease. Thank you, replied the Godem, for everything you've done. I wish we could do more for you. Then it hit her, it wasn't much, but it was the greatest thing she could offer him. If something should happen to you, we will carve your name into our memorial stone as a great shinobi. He smirked before retrieving his spear from the wall. One request, Hokage-sama. Please put my name, not this angelic label. She gave an approving nod. And what would that be? Saramochi's eyes misted a bit before leaning over and whispering it to her. The Godem couldn't help but blush slightly and nod in agreement. Finally the archangel stepped through the doors and was off to begin moving the people to safety along with the other shinobi assigned to do so. Near the edge of the fire country, 2 pupilless eyes watched the marching army of the dead. The owner of the eyes stepped from behind the trees and up to the cliff to observe the legion in full, her black cape billowing out behind her. Immediately her scowl deepened and she turned to her hulking companion. Raise the army, we shall join the fray. Yes, my lady. Naruto sat motionless on the top of the 4th Hokage's head, enjoying the simple breeze and trying to tune out the beating of the drums of war. Below him the shinobi were gathering the tools of their trade, polishing their weapons to myriad finishes and sharpening them to surgical edges. As he sat and twirled a small stick in his hand, he thought back to only 24 hours ago when the beast had nearly had him. Flashback. Weightlessness, it was all the blonde warrior felt as his body descended into a black pit of nothing. Am I dead? He questioned. You are not. Though you are not you, you are me and we are one, answered a voice. A voice so deep Naruto felt as if it acutely radiated darkness and a sinister desire. I am you? Questioned the blonde man. Quickly he gained his bearings, though falling through nothingness. Explain yourself. I have been part of you since the beginning, shouted the ominous being. Naruto's eyes flashed in shock. You're the Kyuubi. The only response was a booming laugh, so vile it made the hairs on the back of the ninja's neck stand on end. Face me, demon. I'll destroy you. The chuckling subsided after a prolonged period of time. You're the Kyuubi, child, again. I am you and you are me, we are one. I am not the Kyuubi. I am Naruto. He shouted, though the shock of the revelation that the voice was not the Nine Tails caused him to quake. It was all he could do to believe himself to be only the man he was now. A slow and grim realization hit him. Why? You're the darkness. The voice made no response, as though allowing him to continue. The Kyuubi I could control. You are the beast inside me, whatever it is. Whatever you are evil. Be more specific, child. I am not evil in such a general term. I am your evil. I am the hate that has manifested in mankind through the ages. I am the darkness that everyone fears. The voice paused, as though searching for the right words, or a storyteller, building anticipation. Though you are special, my child. Such a selfless sacrifice obliterated the darkness within you at your death. Though that sacrifice was more powerful than anyone could have anticipated, you destroyed the darkness that consumed the Nine Tails as well. Naruto began to ponder. His sacrifice redeemed the Nine Tails? No, that was impossible. Nothing could bring that creature into the light. Not even the most pious of men. So why then do you call me the Kyuubi? A half a soul will be forever lost. How it happened I do not know. Though in the end the darkness in your soul was such a great amount that it left a void. The same is true for the Kyuubi. Your half-souls gravitated together like opposite magnets, fusing into one being, creating a god or, more appropriately, a demon. Like a bucket of ice water, the reality of those words hit him and sent the air from his lungs. But if I destroyed the darkness in Kyuubi and myself, then why are you here? And why are you so damned strong? I am a new darkness. The darkness that inhibits the mind and heart of one as strong as yourself. Though I've only had hold of one other such as yourself. I lost my grip on him, and he was gone in the blinding light. A heavy sigh echoed through the darkness. Enough of that. I am here. I have control, and you are going to belong to me. We will wreak havoc and chaos across the plains. Trample the golden gates of the heavens. Snuff out the fires of the hell pit, and shroud the earth in a blanket of black. It will be beautiful, a beautiful nothingness that none but the darkest will inhabit. After an eternity of falling, the blonde's feet meet with a hard surface, though shockingly, he merely landed as though he was falling slow as a feather. A glance around showed him he was in some sort of temple. Black marble floors, black stone walls, and a huge black granite throne sat upon what seemed to be a river of flowing shadows. Where am I? In my domain, echoed the voice from behind him. As Naruto spun around, he saw no one, and though there were no torches, his shadow was as clear and defined as ever. What in the hell? He murmured, because as he moved his shadow remained motionless. In a flash of movement, the blonde had retrieved a kunai and jammed it into the stone floor, at the point of the shadow's heart. To his dismay, the black form was gone. An excellent try, though I'm disappointed that you would try and kill part of yourself. Echoed the voice as the shadow slid from the darkness and took an upright three-dimensional form in front of Naruto. A mirror image of the blonde shinobi, in pure blackness. You're not a part of me, shouted the young man as he now brandished a kunai in each hand. As quickly as he charged, he was batted away by a tendril of darkness that sprouted from the shadow. What do you want? Nothing, replied the shadow. Naruto glared and wiped the trickling blood from his chin away with the back of his hand. Nothing? I think you're lying. Again he charged, and again he was swatted like an annoying fly. He jumped up more quickly this time and began sealing. Shadows quickly bound his hands and feet, holding him rigid and at the monster's mercy. I have your body and am about to begin my destruction of Earth. Though no facial features were discernible, Naruto knew the bastard was smiling, starting with your friends. He cut himself off and his whole demeanor changed. Why is he here? How dare he come to interfere? I shall obliterate his body and feast on his soul. Naruto smirked at the utter loss of composure on the monster's part. You seem out of sorts, something wrong? A mere insect, as are you. A powerless insect that I will crush under my foot. As the monster turned to walk away, the shadows began to creep up on Naruto, slowly engulfing him. The blonde was now going numb. Thoughts came slower, literally feeling the life leaving him. As the words of the darkness ran through his mind again, all he could do was resign himself to death. Demon. I'm the Kyuubi. Sakura, Sasuke, my friends. I'm so. Then it hit him like a blinding bolt of lightning. I'm the Kyuubi. A chuckle escaped his lips. I'm the Kyuubi. The laugh turned into a roaring fit of maniacal giggles. Once he regained his composure, he glared at the retreating shadow. Oi. How strong are you? My power is dictated by my container, answered the demon, assured that the blonde was merely slipping into the madness of the shadows. Why does this concern you? Do not worry, I will make their deaths quick. Though when they die they'll have nowhere to go and merely be wandering souls. Idiot, stammered Naruto, are you stronger than a demon? The shadow was now facing him fully. I am more powerful than most hellspawn or angelic knights. You dare mock me? When I gain your power I will be more than a god. The blonde grinned as he ceased fighting altogether. Are you? He looked up and locked two blood-red eyes on the dark form. Stronger than the Kyuubi? His frown turned into a fanged grin. Did you think I was just going to roll over like a good boy and die? His hair began to shift to a dark orange. This is too much power to be unleashed on Earth, but here in my mind, I won't have to hold back. The shadows exploded away from him in a flash of burning red chakra, his body continuing to morph. I knew there was a part of me that was powerful, but until you gave me the truth, straight up with a twist. I never knew what it was, and I was afraid of what it could do. But now, he paused as his body hunched and he was now on all fours. Now. In a flash, the transformation was complete and the shadow could do little more than quake in fear and accept annihilation. I don't have to hold back at all. Prepare yourself, insect. End flashback. Sasuke was watching Naruto from afar and finally started to approach. Daydreaming Dobi? He questioned. That's not really a healthy shinobi habit. He observed that there was no shouting or dull-witted comeback. HMPH, you really are different. I told you, Teme, he replied with a small smile, that Naruto is gone, and will be forever, there is no bringing him back. Then he shifted and leaned back on his elbows, and even if I was daydreaming I could smell you from a mile away. A companionable silence fell over the former friends and rivals, each mulling in their own thoughts about the other, and where they were in terms of their relationship. We'll have to start over, you know. You, me, Sakura, and Kakashi. Sasuke gave a slight nod. Yay, things are different. He then gave the blonde his trademark smirk, but not too different, eh? Naruto shook his head. More so than you know. With a grunt he stood and offered Sasuke his hand up, which was gratefully accepted. The world is changing, Sasuke. Normally people and animals evolve to better suit their environments, or to evade a predator. He cast a long gaze out over the village that hated him and feared him at the same time. This thing that's coming, it's too fast, we can't evolve. So either we fight and win, or we get wiped off the globe and out of the history books. After a moment the black-haired Uchiha gave a non-committal shrug. Then we win. It sounds pretty easy. Yay, murmured Naruto. Sasuke's solution seemed so simple, and very much something the old Naruto would say, but that man was gone. Replaced by the colder, calmer, and more menacing Naruto. Naruto, Kyuubi no Kitsune. He was disturbed from his thoughts by a hard shove from Sasuke. What the hell was that for? You're brooding, replied the Uchiha clan leader, that only looks good on me, no matter how much you change. Immediately Naruto dropped into his fighting stance, claws extended and low to the ground. Sasuke had already activated his Sharingan, anticipating his rematch with the blonde. As they both lunged at each other, their wrists were gripped by an intruding third person. Quadruple A, this seems familiar, droned Kakashi as he smiled ruefully under his mask. You two at it already? Sasuke smirked as a small cut appeared on Naruto's cheek. Got you, Naruto. He slowly pulled his hand from Kakashi's grip. As he did so, he felt blood trickle down his abdomen and his shirt display 4 identical slash marks. "Got you first," whispered Naruto as he too smirked, only in a more feral way. "We should go. There's a lot left to do and some things that need to be discussed before the battle begins." Kakashi let out a whistle as the blonde vanished from sight. "He's gotten much better." Sasuke snorted. "You have no idea." He received a questioning look from his former mentor. "Where's your book?" The copy ninja patted his coat pocket and paled when he felt nothing but reinforced cloth in his own chest. "Well, that's impressive." "Yay, I almost missed it too," replied the Uchiha. "You know, all I ever wanted to do was be as good as he was, and just when I think I'm almost there, he blows me away again." "Well, there's only one thing left to do," exclaimed Kakashi as he placed a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. Now it was the raven-haired Uchiha's turn to look confused. "Get as strong as he is, so we can protect Konoha and our families?" questioned the young man, though he believed his quandary to be rhetorical. The copy ninja nodded. "That, and I want my book back. It's a collector's edition." On the other side of the village, Itachi sat next to a silent Saramochi. "They are going to come for you then?" The angel nodded. "They will." "And we are not to interfere?" questioned the Uchiha. "You are not," was the stern response. Itachi cracked open an eye and turned it on his monotone companion. "And you will die." Saramochi chuckled. "And I will die. Why would you welcome death so free-spirited? Ly?" questioned Itachi. "As I understand it, you are not only going to die, but to be judged by your peers." The archangel shrugged. "They will most likely throw me to the void without question." He gave a long stretch and stood up. After retrieving his spear, shield, and helmet, he cast a glance out over the bright city. Transgressions of this caliber are usually dealt with in swift measure. Unconsciously, the eldest Uchiha scowled. How could someone face death so easily? Though he had died once, this new punishment seemed to be more terrible than being a warrior for passing centuries. "Is that face for me, Uchiha Itachi?" questioned Saramochi. "I will not go calmly or quietly, that I assure you. But I cannot take on heaven alone." A loud crunch was heard. Both heads turned to see Kisame gnawing on a fishbone. "Then let us help you. Don't be so self-righteous. We're comrades." "We're friends," interrupted a fourth voice, belonging to Naruto. "I'm not going to idly stand by and let you be hauled off into the darkness." "I've been there, Saramochi." He narrowed his eyes. "It's not a pleasant place." A laugh erupted from the angel, causing his 3 friends to look at him quizzically. "Don't be so eager to condemn me to death. I have abilities I haven't even shown you 3 yet. Also," he paused, "the minute I transgressed I became a mortal being." The confused looks continued. "Angels, and even demons, are already judged and it cannot be passed upon them again. Therefore, to judge me a heretic, I have to be a man." Kisame huffed. "What a complicated thing." "Itachi, then, if what you say is truth, then we cannot knowingly abandon you." He was interrupted by Saramochi talking over him. "Then you will condemn all of Konoha to destruction." That silenced any other objections. "I will confide in you 3 then, as you are all I have left." Replacing his equipment on the ground, he sat and gestured for everyone to do so. "This battle is the equivalent to a one-on-one battle in the midst of a war. I do not know what is coming, nor the reason that this dark tide is spawned. True that this is a creation of man, but man alone does not command this thing. Something darker is the puppeteer in this, but who I cannot say." He then turned a stern expression on the 3 men. "It is up to us to find out what, if I do not survive this ordeal, then it will be on you 3, along with this great village." With a short sigh and a new smile plastered on his face, the fallen angel stood. "How about some lunch? I'm famished." Before they could get started on their way, a fast-approaching brunette called out to them, "Oi! Baka Naruto-sensei." "Ah," muttered Naruto. "Konohamaru, I'll have to take a rain check, but we will have dinner after the battle, nay?" "It seems I will have to as well," stated Itachi while looked at a figure perched on a rooftop. "It is time for training." With a nod, both men were gone. "Then do you have a prior obligation as well, Kisame-kun, or will you take advantage of my generosity?" The shark man scratched the back of his head. "I'll decline. Such a depressing mood will ruin the flavor of the fish." "Indeed," muttered the angel. "I'll see you on the battlefield then, Kisame-kun." As the large man vanished, Saramochi grinned. "I have good friends." He then cast a defiant smirk, not one of an angel but now a man, towards the heavens. "So the boatman waits for me. Then his smirk turned to a full-fledged grin as he lowered his head. "You will excuse me if I make him wait a bit longer."